Welcome to the Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
And a happy Sunday afternoon, everyone. The sun is out. It's warm outside. I'm in shorts, which is a rare sight to see. But I had to, when I saw the sun this morning, I said I can't do the pants thing today. You're listening to The Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Terry Kilakos, chartered real estate and mortgage broker, as well as president and founder of Northeast Real Estate and Mortgage Agency. Today, we are talking about how to increase the value of your home with certain renovations. Many of us have taken this opportunity over the last little while to do some renovations because we've been locked away in quarantine, and we figured, hey, why not? Let's take this opportunity to spruce up the house a little bit, whether it's painting, whether it's major renovations, minor renovations. But which renovations are actually going to bring up the value of your property the most? And these are actual questions that come up all the time. I have clients that ask me day in, day out as to whether or not the renovations that they're doing will actually increase the value, decrease the value even, or just kind of keep things even Steven. So I'd love to hear from you guys. I want to know what you guys have been up to over the last few weeks. What kind of renovations have you done, if you've done any? And if you haven't, why haven't you? As usual, due to certain restrictions, my co-host Merav Marciano will not be joining me. She is remote. She's actually on the phone. I believe she's on the line with us right now. Hi, Merav. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I actually miss you in studio here.
Yeah, a couple of your clients mentioned it's not the same.
Yeah, I know. There's a few of them that have actually mentioned it, but yeah. We're not going to talk about that right now.
Soon. I'll be back in studio soon.
Feel free to join the conversation by calling in with your questions to 514-790-0800 or texting into 514-800. You can also watch us and comment on Facebook Live at facebook.com/Terry Kilakos. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca, where all these shows live, and you get to see all the fun and exciting stuff that happens behind the scenes. Mind you, I'm by myself right now in the studio, so there's not a whole lot of exciting stuff that happens behind the scenes, but for those of you that listen long enough, you know that I tend to break stuff, so yeah, you might end up catching a little glimpse of that. Before we kick off the show, we want to do just a really quick market update here. On the mortgage front, we actually saw the fixed rates go down this week, which is a blessing. I mean, we've been watching the rates going up, believe it or not, on the fixed side over the last little while, and now we've actually seen them drop. Something that's interesting, over the last little while, the 5-year bond yields have actually gone down, and they're actually at the lowest point that they've been in a really long time. So I'm actually foreseeing rates really tanking on the 5-year fixed side. So I'm looking forward to that. And because of that, we've seen the qualifying rate, which the stress test uses, has gone down as well. So this week, we're going to be seeing the qualifying rate go from 504 down to 499. And I have a feeling probably within the next week or so after that, it's going to go down to 494, which is good. Helps people qualify for mortgages a little bit easier. Merav, what's been going on in the Montreal real estate market?
Well, of course, looking at articles, you want to go and hide, but once you realize that media is there to sell drama, you understand that it's not so bad. Okay,
we're on CJAD. We can't say that.
Media, I said.
Media in general, yes.
So,
okay.
Of course, the big headlines, it's been the worst April in 36 years. Of course, there was no listings. There was no properties being sold. So since 1984, this has been the April where there was the least amount of sales, so number of sales. I'm not talking about home prices. Home prices actually went up, the average home price in the month of April, if you look at all the homes sold. So that's good news. And we don't foresee any drop, and if there is a drop, it will be a slight drop of 1% to 2%, really just for those people who are forced to sell quickly and are okay to compromise on their price. but we really don't foresee a drop in residential real estate. On the commercial front, we might see a little bit of a drop, but even at that, not in office buildings, more like strip malls, retail. On the retail side, we'll see a little bit of a drop in there, but not in office space.
What have you been seeing, actually, talking about commercial real estate, what have you been seeing in the last little while with respect to, are landlords kind of giving the breaks that they're supposed to be giving to the tenants? I know that there was a lot of issues with the rent help that the government was giving in.
Well, look, there is help for commercial renters.
Right.
But this is an agreement that you have to make with the landlord, because the landlord has to apply with you for that subsidy. You're still responsible for 25% of the rent as a renter, and then the landlord gets the other 75%. That's why he's involved in the application. With respect to that, it's retail that's really hurting the most. Offices, we do see a trend that some offices are reducing the amount of square footage that they need. Mm-hmm. However, we still have some big companies coming into Montreal. They still have plans to come in, so that office space will get rented out. So I'm not as worried about office space. I am much more worried about retail.
I'm really, I'm really wondering whether or not this is gonna, it's gonna start like this slow kind of like progression to reduced kind of office hours, in the sense that people are not going to be going into the office for 5 days a week. Maybe they'll be going in for 3 and then doing teletravail for the rest of the time. I'm really. What do you see? What do you think about something like that?
Yeah, we are hearing about this trend that's most probably gonna be hitting a lot offices and retail. Well, not so much retail, because you do need to open up your store, but some people did realize on the retail front that they're able to do what they're doing online, like selling clothes or whatever it is. So, we might see some of these businesses shut their doors. But office space-wise, yes, they are talking a lot about reducing the number of square feet that they're renting out, because they realize now half their staff can work from home.
Yeah, so, and this is why we're seeing the reduction in the amount of actual office space that's being taken up, right?
Yes, but I mean, we're still going to see a lot of activity, but what we're not seeing a lot of is pre-leasing or like office building construction. Those are all on hold. So, the whole pre-leasing before delivery, we won't see that the next couple of months.
Next week on the show, actually, we're going to be talking about this in a lot of detail. We have a couple of guests that are going to be joining us, obviously not in studio. They're going to be joining us remotely. You want to give a little introduction about who's going to be coming on board with us next week?
Yes, we've got Luciano Diorio from Cushman Wakefield, as well as Mike Yeager and Sam Tsumas from Rosefellow. So these are both big names in commercial space in Montreal, and they're going to be giving us their 2 cents about that market.
I'm excited about that. I'm always fascinated about that side of the business. When we come back, we're going to be looking at how to increase the value of your property with the right home renovations. But first, we're going to take a small detour over to the CJAD Traffic Center with Kira Yeager. You're listening to The Real Estate Show, and today we are looking at tips and tricks to increase the value of your home. Feel free to join the conversation by calling in at 514-790-0800, or you can text into 514-800 in order to join the conversation. Merav, are you there?
I am.
You tried to escape during the traffic there.
I see the beautiful sun. I wanted to sit outside with my bathing suit.
No, it ain't happening until I get there. All right. So there's an interesting text, and I wanted you to hear this text that came in, because we've actually gone through this exact thing, and it says, I have white stucco walls in the basement, family room. Is it worth having the walls redone? They are the original walls. The house was built in 1974. Thank you. So, Merav, as a woman, what do you say?
Oh, no, get rid of those stucco walls. We had that popcorn ceiling in the basement, remember?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we thought of the route of scraping it off, but honestly, the easiest route was just tearing down that sheetrock and putting in a brand new sheet of sheetrock, and it just felt so great because the amount of sanding that would have to go into that popcorn ceiling would be a disaster.
Yeah. And it is something that you can do. You could just kind of scratch it, scrape it away, and then just make sure that you get someone that really knows how to plaster well to come in and fix it up a little bit. That's, kind of the cheap material route, but it's extremely messy. So I would probably do what we did, which is actually, if you're able to tear it down or go on top of it, which is another thing that you can do. Although at that point you end up having other issues with very thick walls. So yeah, I definitely would suggest doing that. See, that's a perfect example of something that ages the home and actually reduces its value, right?
And seeing as you mentioned that, we had also in our country house that wood paneling in the bedrooms, and just painting them actually like spruced up the rooms. It made them so bright compared to having brown wood paneling walls.
Yep.
And that was really the cheap route, and it looks great. It's like a textured wall. Exactly.
It's got that shiplap appeal that I can't even pronounce that. You know what I'm talking about. We have another text here from Brad. Is there any way to increase your mortgage when you buy a home in order to include renovations, renovation money in there? And that's from Brad. And I think that was a text from online, actually. Brad, very simply, yes, you can increase the mortgage so that you can add renovation money to it. It's called a purchase plus improvements. Typically, those types of mortgages are insured mortgages, which means that the lender, what they're going to do is you have to provide them with a certain number of quotes at the beginning. So when you're actually about to buy the property, you give them the quotes of what you want to do. They approve it, and then once they approve it, you're good to go. The majority of lenders will do it up to 10% or $40,000, whichever one is lower, obviously, and you have to complete all the work before the funds are released back to you. So sometimes certain lenders might actually ask you to prove that you actually have that money available to do these renovations. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Merav.
So there's no lenders who will accept to just front you the money. You have to basically pay for it, and then they refund you. Is there any way where you don't need to have, let's say, that $40,000 handy?
So some lenders occasionally will do a progressive advance on it. They'll disperse in a couple of payments. It's rare. And it's usually not as simple to do it like that. The way that I like to do the purchase plus improvements is very simply, when we're actually setting up the mortgage from the get-go, give me quotes, right? Go get a whole bunch of quotes from different contractors. Supply me with those quotes. Once I have those quotes, I submit them to the lender. Once the lender has it, they approve those renovations. And then once the work is done, then you end up calling back the lender. The lender will send an appraiser back to the house. You usually pay $50 for that appraisal. The appraiser comes in. They do the appraisal on the property, and they look and they say, okay, you said you were doing the kitchen. Check, you did it. You said you were doing a bathroom. Check, you did it. You said you were doing an electrical panel. Check, you did it. And once all the work is done, you're good to go. The problem comes in when people will start to do renovations that are actually outside of the scope of that work, right, that you had already quoted.
That they had already approved, basically.
Exactly. And I've actually had a few people do that. We have another texter that just texted in. Should I renovate before selling my home? And that's from Sally. Well, I've always been the type of person that prefers to renovate so that I could actually enjoy the renovations. When you renovate, you're renovating to your taste, which is not necessarily the taste of someone else. And Merav, we've seen this where people, before selling their house, they decided to redo kitchens, redo this, change fixtures, do a whole bunch of stuff, but it was disastrous, right? The way that it looked.
Yeah, it's not necessarily to the buyer's taste. So you've spent all this money, and they end up tearing it down. Unless it's something really important like wall-to-wall carpeting, I would remove that before selling. But if it's really like we're talking about painting a room red and putting a teal cabinet, then that's not necessarily to everybody's taste.
Exactly. And it's important that obviously when you are doing renovations, you have to remember that, again, if you're renovating for yourself, it's one thing. You got to do it the way that you're going to do it the way that you want to do it and to your taste. But when you're actually renovating so that you could sell a property, there are certain things that are going to actually support the value of your property, and there's other things that are going to actually increase the value of your property. And the amount of times that I've had clients come in and they've said to me, Terry, I just did the roof, I just did the windows, I just did this, I just did that. Well, those things do not increase the value of your house. Okay, it's expensive, it's high ticket items, right? But they don't increase the value of your house. What they are actually doing is they're supporting the value of your house. So, for example,
if they don't do the roof, would that reduce the value of the house? That's
exactly. So, if a house was supposed to sell for $300,000, for example, with a proper roof, and the roof is not done, well, the people that are going to be buying it, what they're going to be asking for is they're going to ask for a reduction on the price of the purchase so that they can actually have the money to do the roof after, right? So that's a perfect example. So if the roof is done, well, then it's going to fetch $300,000. Now, unless you're going to go and install a Tesla roof, which is going to be powering batteries and, with the exception of unique features like, I mentioned windows, if you're going to put high efficiency windows, you're going to do something like that. Maybe in a case like that, you might end up having a slight increase, but for the most part, it won't. Merav, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to go back in town.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about home renovations, which are going to increase the value of your house, which are going to decrease the value. Coming up, we're going to be looking at some more easy renovations that you can do in order to increase the value. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us on The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about whether or not certain renovations will increase the value of your home, decrease it, keep it the same. We'd love to hear what our listeners have to say about the subject. You can call in to 514-790-0800 or text in at 514-800 to let us know about your experience. I also want to know if you've renovated your home and you actually priced it out of the market, which comes up very often. Just because you like a gold toilet bowl doesn't mean that the next person will either, right? So we have a text here. Is it safe to get your rental material delivered to your home? I would say yes. I mean, there is certain restrictions that are going in right now. I mean, there, where once upon a time you would be able to get certain deliveries brought into your house. Right now, they're not delivering it in the house. Everything is done outdoors. The problem is that when you order any type of rental material, whether it's from Home Depot or Rental Depot, I mean, it's just a disaster, the delivery. And we actually had this experience a couple of weeks ago where we needed some renovation material brought to our office, some sheetrock and stuff like that, and it just never showed up. So we had the contractors, we had all the people kind of waiting, standing by for the material to come in, and nothing actually showed up. When we actually looked into it and we called the store that was supposed to deliver it, they said, "Oh, we don't have that order." And then there was another one that they made it so that it was supposed to be a pickup. I mean, it was just a disaster from beginning to end. So we ended up canceling the delivery altogether. And I found this amazing app. And for those of you who know me, you know that I don't kind of promote things very often, but when I promote it, I mean, it's because it's amazing. And it was actually called Reno Run. So it's this app that you download on your phone. And Reno Run, what it'll basically do is you go in there, you set up your account, and anything that you would need, sheetrock, plywood, you need anything, whatever it is, you just select it in the app, you click order, and it's delivered. And sometimes it's even delivered within a couple of hours. So they're the ones that actually saved our renovation project recently because they were able to deliver very, very quickly. And just amazing. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. If you actually go, I went on their website and they even said that they usually deliver coffee as well, but now with COVID, unfortunately, they're not delivering coffee. We have a text here. I'm a landlord, semi-commercial property. I came to an agreement to give a month of rent free to my tenant. Should I should I change to the government Circa program? Thank you, Mark from Dorval. Well, look, if your tenant is able to pay, then you don't need the program. If the tenant is not able to pay, then yeah, it would be a good idea. I mean, it would definitely give a little bit more of a reprise to your tenant. The problem with these programs is they're so restricted that the majority of businesses are not actually qualifying for them. They've earned too much money this year. Their sales haven't dropped. This hasn't happened. That hasn't happened. So, when you look at the actual restrictions for some of these programs, they're through the roof. So I'm not a big fan of the program. Whether or not in the future we might end up putting it in place, we'll see. But for now, I haven't done it. I haven't even, my tenants have all paid. Whether or not they're going to continue to do that, we'll see. Do you think that the condo glut will leading to lower rental and sales prices? Will the rental sales prices go down? So lower rental, no. Rents, I don't think are going to drop in value because there's actually a shortage on the island of Montreal right now. We're not seeing prices going down. For their prices to go down, there would have to be an oversupply of rentals available, residential rentals. Unfortunately, that's not happening. What we will be seeing on the sales side, I believe, is that we're going to see kind of prices stabilize a little bit before they actually start going back up. And one of the reasons why I'm saying that is because people haven't been listing properties. So because people aren't listing properties, there's a lack of inventory. So if there's a lack of inventory, and we've talked about this before on the show. So if there's a lack of inventory, well, what ends up happening? You end up having prices going up. It's the whole supply and demand thing. It's, economics 101 here. So as long as you end up having like this lack of inventory and a increased amount of supply, a lack of inventory and a high demand, well, you're going to end up getting higher prices. Luckily in Quebec, I mean, we do have the rental board, so there is a certain amount of limits that are going to be put in by landlords, to landlords by the rental board, but that remains to be seen. Now, the next important question here is whether or not a property going to be priced out of the market. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a story about myself. So when I first moved out of my parents' house, I was 24 years old. I had money in my pocket, and I had bought my first fourplex. And when I bought my fourplex, I wanted to live in the lap of luxury. Now, I was buying a place in Hochelaga Maisonneuve where I was living in this tiny little 3.5 apartment. But I felt that I needed to do the bathroom because the bathroom needed updating. So when I did the bathroom, the first thing that I did is I put in a nice jacuzzi tub. At the time, I mean, right now when you look at Hochelaga Maisonneuve, it's kind of the in place to be. But back then, that was not a good idea. It was great for me. But if I was expecting the price of my property to go up because I put in a jacuzzi tub, for example, it wasn't the case. And that's one of the things that we've been seeing time and time and time again. Over the last little while, people are going in, they're doing renovation after renovation in properties, and then they come to us and they say, well, I've spent $100,000 on my backyard, so because I've spent that much money, I'm expecting the next person that's buying the property to front that bill. It doesn't work like that, right? Just because you like a certain backyard, your backyard of looking a certain way, doesn't mean that the next person. So that's a perfect example of how we can actually price a property, renovate a property out of the market, price it out of the market completely, where we're doing renovations that don't make sense. So, for example, what will increase the value of our house? Bathrooms, they're going to increase the value of the house. Kitchens are going to increase the value of the house. But, again, you're doing a bathroom, you put a 24-karat gold toilet in there, whoever's going to buy your house, they're not going to pay for that toilet. They're going to tell you, take the toilet with you. And oh, by the way, now you have to put in another one. So again, that's the type of renovation that's not going to necessarily be increasing that value. Hello, wondering if landscaping increases the value of a home and by how much. Patty from Beaconsfield. So that kind of comes right down to what we were talking about, right? You don't want to have the property that is a complete disaster where, the grass is burnt outside and, you have nothing out there. So you want to landscape. You want to clear the bushes a little bit. You know, especially if you're planning on selling, you trim the bushes down, the house will actually look bigger. These are all little important things that are very, very, very important to do. A good landscaping goes a long way. But again, don't expect to recoup if you spend tens of thousands of dollars on your landscaping. Don't expect to recoup that money. It might not happen. Been renovating on the hill, Westmount, for several decades. Actually, before we get to that text, it's a very good one. We're going to take a small detour over to the CJAD Traffic Center with Kira Yeager. Thanks for tuning into the discussion about home renovations and increasing your home value. We are quickly running out of real estate here, and we've got a whole bunch of texts that are in. Let's get to this one really quickly. How long will it take for the landlord to receive payments for the circa payments? Hope you have a good one. So it's for April, May, and June, right? So when we're looking at the rent assistance that's coming in, it should be coming in immediately. From what I've seen, it comes in immediately. But again, it's whether or not you want to actually do it. We have another text here. Been renovating on the hill, Westmount, for several decades. Number one mistake is owners tend to do renos to their taste after the sale. The dumpster gets filled with their tastes. And that's exactly what we've actually been seeing time and time again. The amount of times, don't forget, we have our real estate arm. We have our mortgage arm. And the amount of times that we end up having a client that's selling a property and we happen to have optics on the person that's buying it. And the person that's buying it comes to us and says, oh yeah, I got to renovate this whole place. And I look at them and I say, but it was just renovated. They're like, yeah, we don't like it. We want to make it, we want to make it simple. We actually have another one. What are some small, inexpensive home updates I can do to increase the value of my home? That's for Mary. And I'm going to actually go to Max, Max Atala, who's actually one of our brokers, who also just had a little munchkin. So congratulations to him and his beautiful wife. And he actually wrote, a fresh coat of paint does wonders too. Exactly. So Mary, that's something simple. A fresh coat of paint really does wonders. It's inexpensive in most cases to do it. And it really makes a difference. When my wife and I, we were looking to buy our home in the one that we live in right now in Dollard in 2016, the previous owners and the real estate brokers had actually taken pictures of this, and I can't believe it, but the walls were painted this green color. And I can't even, it was like a hospital green. And I mean, truth be told, for us, when I first saw those pictures, I was not very game on buying it. I actually didn't want to even paint when we went in. And then lo and behold, they actually changed the color. They actually brought in a painter, changed the color. And then at that point, we were all interested. There was actually a few people that came in. 3-bedroom bungalow built in 1957, purchased in 1988. Basement came with wood paneling. 30 years ago, we raised the basement floor to cover black, white square tiles and covered the. Why you don't like a checkerboard floor? Okay. Square tiles and covered with utility thin wall-to-wall carpet, inclusive of stairs. Regarding walls and carpeting, what should be done for future sale? I mean, if you're planning on selling it in the future and you want to do the renovations so that you can enjoy them before you sell it, then by all means do it. It's to your taste. The majority of times what I would actually do in a case like this, and our real estate brokers love doing this, it's part of the service that we actually give as at Northeast, where if you're thinking about selling a property, what we do is we will come in and we will tell you, we're going to say, look, based on the way that your house is right now, this is how much it could fetch. you can receive X amount of dollars for it. If you do these renovations, you can get this much for it. It's not going to make sense for you to spend $30,000 doing renovations on something if you're going to only get an extra $30,000, right? You don't want to break even. You want to actually increase. For every dollar that you spend, you should actually be getting a little bit more. And actually, someone texted in on Facebook also a little bit earlier, where and that was John, who wrote, "Stucco is a travesty of home decorating." I agree. John also wrote, "No, a contractor that buys properties and does all the destruction side and then sells buyers a fresh canvas." Yeah, absolutely. You can do that as well. I've seen people that do that. They'll go in, they're going to tear out certain things, and then when the buyers come in, the contractor will say, "We will build this. We will put in whatever it is that you want." And some people like that, and other people don't, because some people actually don't have the vision that it takes to buy a property with some love that's needed. So it is very important that when you, again, we go back to what we were saying, you want to make sure when you're doing renovations, are you doing the renovations for yourself, or are you doing the renovations to sell the property at a higher price? And just make sure that if you are doing it to sell the property at a higher price, make sure you get a professional in to do a proper assessment. Now, the other thing is, some simple stuff to do: declutter, fresh coat of paint, curb appeal. Curb appeal, when we've talked about the landscaping. When you're looking at your house from the outside, if you have these big honkin' bushes outside, the property is being hidden. It might look nice to you, but to someone else, they want to see what they're actually buying. And unfortunately, the majority of the times you don't end up doing that. The other thing that you want to do, you want to spruce up your house a little bit. Like we said, a good cleaning, some modern blinds, some plants. Make sure your house smells good, right? These are all little things. Just because you are used to your house smelling a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to appeal to other people, right? So you just got to make sure that the house smells good. We have another text here. Do you recommend a pre-sale inspection? Yes, 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 and yes. And it's actually something that we do all the time as well at Northeast. We have inspectors, they go in and they will verify the property before you list it. So that way, when you're filling out that seller's declaration, you are actually filling it out accurately and correctly. And if you need to address anything, so if the inspection discovers something, you could address it before you actually have visits and you end up having people running into the house and then, lowballing you. So a pre-sale inspection is actually a very, very good idea. I strongly suggest that people do it, and it's a service that we actually provide at Northeast to make sure that every single one of our clients, when they're selling their property, they're selling it and they're getting top dollar for that property. Okay. I feel like it's all subjective. There's no one single thing that's most likely to work. I love a house with tall hedges because it gives me the illusion of privacy. You see, that's a perfect example. This Mr. or Mrs., they prefer having tall hedges. Other people don't. Again, it's all subjective. Like the texter just said, it's very, very, very important that whatever it is that you're going to do, you always have to be thinking, am I reselling it for someone else? So you got to do stuff that's very standard and not too expensive. Or are you doing it for yourself? Again, I'm of the mind that you want to always renovate before you actually put something on the market. You want to renovate for yourself. If you're going to do a kitchen, if you're going to do a bathroom, do it for yourself. Don't do it for the next person. We're at a real estate. Remember, you guys can always find us at the office at 514-680-4674. As well, if you want, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca, where all these shows live. Till next week, everyone, where we're going to be actually talking about commercial real estate. And we're going to have a few experts that are going to be on the line with us, not in studio, because we're not allowed. I wish everyone to be safe. I wish you guys all a blessed weekend. And remember, you can call us at the office at any time. Olympia, myself, we're all there to support you and help you guys out. 514-680-4674. Take care, everyone.